One big reason why a logical disaster keep happening is because a lot of people are still not aware of environmental issues. Like yes, some people already know that throwing trash anywhere is bad, but they still do it anyway, and because of that, drainage system get clogged, rivers get dirty, and kapag umulan, baha agad. Also, most of the time, environmental awareness is taught in very theoretical way. Alam lang ng students yung concept pero hindi talaga na-apply in real life. So, my knowledge but walang action. To fix this, in my opinion, education should be more hands-on. Like instead of just lectures, there should be activities and such as cleanup drives, recycling project, and disaster drills. When people actually experience these things, mas magiging responsible sila and mas magiging habit yung mga sustainable actions.
Mahigit 2 milyong tonelada ng plastic waste ang nalilikha sa Pilipinas taon-taon. Ayon po yan sa World Bank. Sa isinagawang workshop ng Asia-Europe Foundation sa Johor, Malaysia, dumalo ang GMA Integrated News para alamin kung paano tinutugunan ng ilang bansa sa Asia ang problema sa plastic waste. Saksi, si Nico Wahe.
Kung usapang forever lang naman, baka nangamatay na tayong lahat. Pero ang mga plastic, nandyan pa rin. Sa dami ba naman ang pinoproduce na plastic sa buong mundo? Sa Pilipinas pa lang, 2.7 million tons na ang plastic waste na nililikha taon-taon. 163 million na piraso naman ng mga sachet ang kinokonsum araw-araw sa bansa. Sa dami niyan, saan nga ba ito napupunta lahat? Sa Singapore, sa tahanan nagsisimula ang disiplina. Sinusunod ang segregation ng nabubulok at di nabubulok. Metikulosong inihihiwalay ang plastic. Ayon kay Philippine Ambassador to Singapore, Medardo Macaraig, may magandang naidulot sa Singapore ang plastic recycling.
Part of the pavement is made out of the recycled plastics, part of the road pavement actually.
Parte raw ito para maging epektibo at kapaki-pakinabang ang kanilang circular economy. Reuse, recycle, para iwas basura. Ganyan din ang sistema sa Johor, Malaysia. Pinuntahan namin ang isa sa 900 schools na sistematikong nagre-recycle. Mga puso, nandito tayo sa isang eskwelahan dito sa Johor, Malaysia, para bisitahin yung kanilang recycling room. Pagpasok natin dito sa kwarto na to, makikita natin na may mga label yung mga recycling area nila. Depende sa kung anong klase ng basura. At ang pinaka-importante sa lahat, yung mga iniipon nila rito ng mas marami ay yung iba't ibang klase ng plastic. Tuwing Biyernes, dinadala ng mga estudyante ang nasegregate nilang basura sa bahay.
Recycling can teach the student to be responsible of themselves, of the earth, and of the community around them.
May kapalit na reward ang may pinakamaraming maiipon na basura. Mula noong June noong nakarang taon hanggang April 2025, nakaipon at nakarecycle na sila ng mahigit 11,100 kilogram ng mga basura. Zero plastic din sila sa paaralan. Aluminum ang mga gamit sa kantin. Isang kumpanya ang kapartner nila na responsable para mag-recycle ng mga naipong basura lalo na ng plastic. Lahat ng mga nire-recycle na plastic dito sa Johor, Malaysia ay mga taga-Johor din na nakikinabang. Lahat ng mga nanggagaling dun sa mga eskwelahan na nasa 909 na mga eskwelahan na katulong yung kumpanya ay nakikinabang dun sa mga nire-recycle na plastic. Isa sa mga produkto na nagagamit nila mula dun sa recycled plastic ay ang mga upuan na ito. Sa Pilipinas, ayon sa Greenpeace, posible naman ang circular economy.
So it might mean we will have to adjust it based on the context. Pero hindi siya imposible dahil yung circular economy, when you look at the concept, when you assess it, how it's supposed to be designed is regenerative siya. So it's supposed to be self-sustaining in a way, and it's addressing resource management, not just waste management.
Mayroon na nga raw gumagawa nito. Sa San Fernando, Pampanga na 2008 pa lang daw ay circular economy na. Lahat din nagsisimula sa tahanan. Mayroon silang no segregation, no collection policy. 35 barangay nila ang nagbabahay-bahay araw-araw para kunin ang mga naihiwalay ng basura. Saka dadalhin sa kanya-kanyang MRF o Materials Recovery Facility, tulad ng sa Barangay Malpitik.
Hindi po natatambak yung basura namin kung nakikita nyo. Talagang sa household pa lang kung talagang sinesegregate yung basura.
Isa rin sa paraan nila ang pagpalit ng plastic bottle sa dishwashing liquid. Banned na rin ang single-use plastic sa syudad.
Halimbawa, consumer, syempre, ititrace namin yan saan mo binili. No? So, ang sinasanction namin, pinipenalize namin, are the producers or yung kung sino talaga ang gumagamit ng packaging.
Ang San Fernando raw ang may pinakamataas na waste diversion rate o yung pag-iwas ng pagtatapon ng basura sa mga landfill at sa halip ay ma-recycle at magamit sa ibang bagay. Malaki raw ang naitulong ng kanilang Central Materials Recovery Facility. Itong lugar na ito ay dating dump site ng San Fernando pero kinonvert into CMRF o Central Materials Recovery Facility kung saan ang 35 barangay ng San Fernando inilalagak lahat ng kanilang basura, mapa residual o plastic waste. At bilang bahagi ng kanilang circular economy, ang mga naipong plastic kinukolekta ng isang kumpanya ng semento na nire-recycle para gawing refuse diesel fuel ng kanilang mga equipment. Ang ibang basura gaya ng mga market waste tulad ng bulok na gulay o karne, ginagawang compost o pataba sa lupa. Sa ilalim ng batas, dapat may MRF ang bawat barangay sa bansa. Pero sa datos ng COA, nasa 39% lang ng mga barangay ang mayroon nito. Pero sa 39% na yan, hindi pa lahat gumagana. Ayon sa Greenpeace, maganda ang base policy ng Pilipinas pagdating sa waste management o ang Ecological Waste Management Act at maging ang EPR law. Kaso, hindi raw na ma-maximize ng LGUs.
Ang rami pang gawin para maabot natin yung tinatawag natin na circular economy goals that we have. But at the same time, it also means that there's opportunities to implement the right kind of solutions.
Negosyo, pamahalaan, at tayong individual. Ang pinagsama-sama nating pagmamahal sa kalikasan ang mag-aahon sa atin sa nakalulunod na problema sa plastic. Para sa GMA Integrated News, ako si Nico Wahe, ang inyong saksi.
With climate change getting worse, mas lumalakas ang bagyo, mas tumataas ang baha, and mas risky na tumira in some areas. Because of this, local government have a responsibility to build a stronger and more disaster-resilient infrastructures like seawalls, proper drainage system, and evacuation center. Ethically, it's a government job to protect the lives of the people. Practically, mas okay din na mag-invest sa strong infrastructure kaysa gumastos ng mas malaki sa repairs after disaster. The problem is, some projects get delayed because of the budget issues, poor planning, or corruption. That's why local government should really prioritize disaster and make sure projects are done properly and transparently. Community-based disaster preparedness is actually very effective. This includes barangay drills, voluntary rescue teams, and local warning system. Since the people in the community know their area well, mas mabilis nilang makaka-respond during emergency. Compared to pure top-down government rules, community-based program feel more personal, mas cooperative ang mga people kapag involved sila mismo. But honestly, the best approach is the combination of both. Government provides support and resources, while the community takes action on the ground. Media plays a big role in spreading information about environmental issues and disaster warnings, like TV, radio, and social media help people get updates fast, especially during emergencies. However, social media can be risky. May fake news, misinformation, and sometimes sobrang panic. Kaya important na people should verify information and listen to official sources like government agencies. governance is not just about being not corrupt, that's literally the bare minimum. A truly good governance is one that is transparent, accountable, efficient, and people-centered. If a government is not corrupt but is slow, unresponsive, and doesn't listen to its society, then honestly, that's still bad governance. Good governance means the government actually works for the people. Service should be delivered on time, policies should be clear, and decisions should be explained properly. This quality can be measured through audits, public satisfaction survey, and performance report. If citizens are constantly complaining about poor service, then clearly the governance is failing. So for me, good governance is something that can be felt and experienced, not just written on a paper. For me, I strongly believe that technology is one of the best tools to promote transparency and accountability in government. Digital systems like open data portals make it easy for citizens to see where public money is going. When transactions are done online, there is less personal interaction, which means fewer chances for bribery and corruptions. Technologies like blockchain can also help because records cannot be easily altered. However, technology alone is not enough. If officials are not honest, and they will still find ways to abuse the system, so technology should be partnered with strong laws and proper monitoring. In my opinion, citizen participation is necessary, not optional. Yes, some people argue that this causes delay and inefficiency, but I think that's a weak excuse. When citizens participate through consultation and public hearings, policies become more realistic and acceptable. A government that does not listen to its people may be efficient on paper but is disconnected from reality. Of course, participation should be organized and guided, but removing citizen participation just to make things faster is dangerous and can lead to poor and unfair decisions. I believe a professional and merit-based civil service is the backbone of the good governance. Politicians come and go, but civil servants stay. If the civil service is not professional, then policies will always change depending on who is in the power. When civil servants are hired because on skills and not connection, government service become more stable and efficient. Those also prevent favoritism and political interference. Without a strong civil service, even the best policies will fail. So for me, protecting the professionalism and independence of the civil service is essential for long-term good governance.
Iniibig niyo ba ang bayang ito? Bayan mo sarili, pumili ka! Kung pahintulutan mo ako, ang aking hangganan ay ipapamalas ko sa'yo.
In my opinion, grabbing corruption is one of the biggest reasons why many countries fail to develop properly. It affects almost every aspect of society. When corruption is normal, foreigner investors lose trust. No investors want to put money in a country where rules can be easily broken. Public service also suffer. Money that should be used for education, healthcare, housing, and structures is either stolen or poorly managed. Because of this, public schools remain unfunded, hospitals lack equipment, and roads are badly constructed. Corruption also increases wealth inequality. Only a few people benefit while the majority struggle. Over time, this creates frustration, poverty, and loss of trust in the government. So clearly, corruption is not just a moral issue, it is a serious developed problem. There's a big difference between individual and systematic corruption. Individual corruption includes small action like bringing an officer to avoid a ticket, While this is wrong, its impact is usually limited. Systematic corruption, however, is much more dangerous. This happens when corruption becomes a part of the system itself. Powerful individuals influence law, policies, and institutions to benefit themselves. In this situation, even honest people find it hard to do the right thing. I believe systematic corruption poses a bigger threat to the democracy because its weakness institution and remove accountability. To fight individual corruption, strict law enforcement is needed, but for systematic corruption, deeper reforms are required, such as independent courts, free media, and strong transparency measures. There are different tools used to fight corruption, such as the anti-graft, ombudsman office, and freedom of information laws. These tools are important because they create checks and balances in government. In my view, these tools are only effective if they are truly independent. If anti-corruption agencies are influenced by politics, they lose credibility. Freedom of information law are also powerful because they allow citizens and media to expose corruption. However, these tools have limitations. Legal processes are often slow and powerful individuals can delay cases. That's why public pressure and media involvement are very important in fighting corruption.
We demand action to the ombudsman. File the cases now. To the senators, suspend the senators implicated. And to the Congress, pass the anti-political dynasty bill. Because power should not be inherited. It should be earned through service of the people. And because I believe we are a God-fearing nation and prayer is a powerful weapon, will you pray with me against the spirit of evil and corruption in our nation? Panginoon, we lift up our beloved country of the Philippines to you. Reveal every hidden corruption. Ilabas ninyo ang katotohanang tinatago. Let the full weight of justice fall on those who betrayed this nation and stole from its people, not for revenge, but for righteousness. Raise up leaders, Lord, with integrity, courage, and conviction. Bigyan niyo kami ang mga pinunang may puso at tunay na malasakit. Strengthen every Filipino who longs for justice. Restore truth, accountability, and justice. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Corruption also has cultural roots. In some societies, small bribes or favors are seen as normal or a part of life. This mindset makes corruption harder to eliminate because people stop seeing it as wrong. I think this is one of the hardest part to address. Laws alone are not enough if people keep tolerating corruption. Long-term solutions include values education, public awareness, campaigns, and role models who practice integrity. Changing culture takes time, but it's necessary. If society continues to excuse corruption, then it will never truly disappear.
Ang kahalagahan ng pag-uunyon, ang kahalagahan ng pagwelga, isa lang, merong ang kasabihan na the strike is the weapon of the oppressed, of men capable of appreciating justice.
Hindi sa telebisyon! Hindi sa telebisyon! Hindi sa telebisyon ang revolusyon! Hindi sa telebisyon! Hindi sa telebisyon ang revolusyon!
In my opinion, understanding the difference between structural and cyclical unemployment is very important. Structural employment happens when workers' skills no longer match the job available. For example, may trabaho before but because of technology or changes in industry, hindi na kailangan yung skills na yun. Cyclical unemployment, on the other hand, happens kapag economy is doing badly. Kapag may recession, companies reduce workers even if those workers are skilled. For me, structural unemployment is bigger problem. Cyclical unemployment can improve when the economy recovers, but structural unemployments need a long-term solution like retaining and educational programs. Automation and artificial intelligence will definitely change the future of work. Some jobs will disappear, especially repetitive tasks. Because of this, many workers are afraid to lose their jobs. However, I don't think technology is completely bad. It also creates new jobs in fields like IT, data analysis, and digital service. The problem is many workers are not prepared. That's why I believe governments and schools should focus on teaching adaptable skills like technology, problem solving, and critical thinking. Learning should not stop after graduation. Continuous training is very important in today's jobs market. High youth unemployment is very dangerous for society. When young people cannot find jobs, they feel frustrated and hopeless. This can lead to poverty, crime, and even political unrest. In my opinion, the government should focus more practical solution. Vocational training, internship program, and entrepreneur support can help young people gain real skills. Also, supporting small businesses can create more job opportunities. Youth are the future workforce, so ignoring youth unemployment will only create bigger problems in the long run. There is an agreement that increasing minimum wage can cause unemployment because businesses might hire fewer workers. While this can happen in some cases, I believe that fair wages are still necessary. When workers are paid properly, they can spend more, which help the economy. The key is balance. Government should increase wages carefully while also supporting small businesses so they can adjust.
Dumami ang bilang ng mga unemployed o walang trabaho nitong Oktubre. Ayon sa Philippine Statistics Authority, tumaas sa 5% ang unemployment rate sa bansa o katumbas ng 2.54 milyon na mga Pilipino. Mas mataas yan sa naitalang 3.9% unemployment rate noong October 2024. Mas mataas din ang October figure sa naitalang unemployment rate noong Setyembre ngayong taon na 3.8%. Bumaba naman ang bilang ng mga Pilipinong employed o may trabaho nitong Oktubre, naging 95% mula sa 96.2% noong Setyembre. Pagdating naman sa underemployment rate, bumaba ito sa 12% o katumbas ng 5.81 million kumpara noong October 2024. Underemployed ang mga may trabaho pero mas mababa kaysa sa kanilang kakayahan o nakukulangan sa kanilang kinikita.
ka na riyan, kumakalaw ng mga tiyan. Tagu-taguan, dilaw ng mga buwan. Bumangon ka na riyan, kumakalaw ng mga tiyan. Tagu-taguan, bilang na ang mga buwan. Bumangon ka na riyan, kumakalaw ng mga tiyan.
Child abuse is often unreported, and in my opinion, this is one of the biggest problems. Many cases are not reported because of fear, shame, or lack of awareness. Some victims are afraid of speaking up, especially if the abuser is a family member. Mandatory reporting laws are very important, especially for teachers, doctors, and social workers. Public awareness campaigns also help communities understand that child abuse is a serious issue and should not be ignored. Prevention starts with education and strong community support system. Child abuse has long-term effects that last into adulthood. Victims may suffer from mental health issues, low self-esteem, and difficulty trusting others. In my opinion, child abuse should not be seen as a childhood problem only. Its effect can ruin a person's future if not addressed properly. That's why counseling and psychological support are very important for survivors. With the rise of the internet and the social media, children are now exposed to online dangers like cyberbullying and exploitation. This is a serious issue because this happens quietly and it's hard to monitor. I believe government should strengthen law against online and child exploitation. At the same time, parents and schools should teach children about online safety and responsible internet use. Technological companies should also be held accountable in protecting young users. Balancing state intervention and family rights is very sensitive. Families have the right to raise their children, but this right should not be used to excuse abuse. In my opinion, the state should intervene when the child's safety is clearly at risk. Protecting the child should always be the top priority. However, interventions should be fair, careful, and focus on the child's best interests.
Stop child abuse. Call 15999.
Umaabot na sa kalahating milyong batang na biktima ng sexual abuse online. Ayon po yan sa isang pag-aaral na tinalakay sa Senado. Ang malala pa, nagagamit na rin ang artificial intelligence para magmukhang hubad ang mga menor de edad sa kanilang mga litrato kahit hindi naman. Nakatutok si Ian Cruz.
Naluha si Elias Ruby, di niya tunay na pangalan, sa pagharap sa pagdinig sa Senado tungkol sa paglaganap ng online sexual abuse at exploitation of children. Hinikayat niya ang mga tulad niyang biktima na basagin ang kanilang katahimikan ukol sa kanilang pinagdaanan.
And if I can do it, believe in yourself that you can do it too. Kung mananatili tayong tahimik, mananatiling walang takot ang mga tao na gumagawa nito na nang-aabuso ng mga bata.
Ayon sa DSWD, tinatarget ng mga online predator ang mga batang Pinoy dahil bukod sa kahirapan sa bansa, maraming laging naka-online kaya madaling katransaksyon.
Filipinos are good in communicating in English So this is another factor.
Sa pag-aaral ng International Justice Mission Philippines at University of Nottingham, noong 2022 lamang, halos kalahating milyong bata ang naging biktima ng online sexual abuse and exploitation. Ipinapalagay na marami pa raw ang hindi na ire-report. Ang masaklap, 74% sa mga local facilitator, mga mismong kaanak o kakilala ng mga bata.
For every trafficker, there are more or less 3 child victims. And these traffickers are usually relatives or people known to the victims.
Nakakabahala na raw sa panahon ngayon, sabi ng Deep Web Connect, isang cybersecurity advocate. Dahil meron pang app online na kayang tila hubaran ang isang nasa larawan.
There are bots na lets you undress yung mga minors or any other people gamit po sa pamamagitan po ng bots and artificial intelligence.
Ngayon, nagigimbal ako dahil may undress AI pala na pwedeng hubaran gamit ang AI, ang batang yon, at ibenta ang picture sa internet, subscription pa. Sobrang nakakashock, sobrang nakakagalit.
Para sa GMA Integrated News, Ian Cruz nakatutok, 24 oras.